Once a space for inspiration, growth over everything has evolved into something far greater, a movement for education, empowerment, and elevation for women. Here, gratitude isn't just a concept, it's a way of life. Strength isn't just spoken about, it's cultivated. Success isn't just imagined, it's achieved. This is where balance, self-care, and transformation take center stage, where you don't just dream about growth, you step boldly into it. No limits, no hesitation, just elevation. Join the movement today. What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. It's your girl, Coach K. Thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely got another dope conversation for you today. But before we get started, can you please make sure that you have subscribed to the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel on YouTube, or if you're listening on your favorite streaming platform, make sure you have favorited the Woman's Hustle so you keep getting updates on these powerful, powerful episodes that these fellow women entrepreneurs have been diving into. So have been loving the conversation. This was going to be no different, and I'm going to allow my guest the honor of introducing herself. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Hello everyone, my name is Oksana Tademy. I'm also known as the Brand Architect, and I am a brand strategist here based in Orlando, Florida.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to dive into some things and get into some thrills and spills, but also some insight that I know, especially with you being a brand strategist, my listeners are going to totally enjoy. So please share what got you into the brand strategy world.
So it's funny because my story is not like very cut and dry. So I kind of got into branding on accident, to be completely honest with you. It started with me like on a personal level, just exploring some of my gifts and the things that I enjoyed doing. And I didn't realize at the time that it was considered branding or brand design, but I was gravitating towards these things, in pursuit of other things that I was doing, like music and things like that. So on my own personal journey, people started seeing the things I was doing for myself. And then it was kind of like, well, hey, like, can you do my website, or can you do this for me, or can you do that for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll give it a try.
Right. What you say? Yeah.
Yeah, why not? And so in doing that, I realized that a lot of people have all these dreams and these aspirations, but they don't really know where to start or how to put these things together, or how to, create that cohesive professional look that, people really need. And so in helping other people, I kind of discovered a hidden talent that I didn't even know I possessed, which was brand design. And so, time went on. I'm doing, graphic design and freelancing, starting off. And then I was like, okay, well, now I really want to get into the branding side of things. Like, now that I know how to make graphics and I can do a website and I can make things look good, but I want to be a little more intentional with what I'm creating. So let me get into brand design. And then from brand design, I had another pivot, which we'll, I guess, talk about in a little bit, but that was kind of how I got started. So it's kind of just been like a staircase, step by step.
I love it. I love it. I love how you said, like, you started from the personal perspective, right? Sometimes we will suppress our talents. You know what I'm saying? Suppress our gifts because we may not feel like they're aligned with maybe our environments or, things like that. So I love that you were like, hey, let me go ahead and touch. But that curiosity was steady, like, let's see what we got going on over here. So I love that. I think that that's super important, and especially in today's time, right? I know you shared with me recently that you are actually going through a little bit of some restructuring and rebranding. I love that. I'm gonna say this. I don't love that you're going through it, because I can totally understand like the process that's going on right now. But I love that you were really open enough to say, I've got to make some changes, because I want to assume that that's kind of where you are at. Like, it's time to make some shifts.
Yeah. I think what really did it for me, once again, that desire to help people in a greater capacity, right? So as I was doing brand design, I started running to a very common issue with my clients. And that issue was, yes, I can make things that look great. We can give you a brand that looks pretty, but without strategy, it's just going to be polished, but not powerful, And so And so that desire started rising up in me again, that I needed to help at a greater capacity. And so I was like, what these people really need before we even get to the visuals is the strategy behind the brand. And they really need to understand how to build a business, because
Yes.
it's not just putting a flyer up here and a flyer up there. That's not a strategy.
Girl, let me tell you. Let me tell you. People think once you got the LLC, baby, you got a fully functioning business that's just doing this, that, and it's like you've done nothing. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I love that you touched on that because I do want to touch on that a little more because it's so important for people to understand. And also, what I find is a lot of times people see other people doing certain things and they feel like that
Mhm.
that is something that they can do the exact same way, like replicating people's strategies, people's insight. And, you know, in your industry, in your field, I know that you probably see the same thing, hence why you're rebranding, because you're like, hey, I really want to step into and help these people a little bit more. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very common misconception that just because it worked for somebody else means that it fits for my business or it'll work for me the same way. And that's just not the
Hmm.
case. Like,
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
somebody else was able to do it doesn't mean that's the best strategy or the best solution for you. So you really have to, once again, back to strategy, get very intentional about understanding your own business and your own purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because honestly, business is a way to fulfill purpose. For
Mm,
me, that's what business is. And
definitely for me.
so, and so, like really getting clarity on that is, I think, the first step. The more clear you are about who you are, where you're going, and what exactly your business is meant to accomplish and to achieve, and who it's meant to serve, the easier it is for you to get more intentional with your strategy. And
That is
so,
a fact.
I think, yeah, that's the first step. If I were to say anything, would be to get that clarity, because that's going to determine your direction.
Yeah. And even with the clarity, a lot of times people will try to skip the personal clarity side and
Yeah.
just try to branch into the business side of things. I see that so much, and I tell people all the time, working with me, our first session, we're talking about personal things
Oh, yeah.
because it you can't align yourself within a business and even consider yourself purpose driven in your business if you don't have the personal aspect of your life figured out. Now, does that
Hmm.
mean that it has to be perfect? No. But the level of accountability that you have to have in saying, you know what, if I want to do this, if I want to elevate my brand and my business, I got to get my shit together over here. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's really just a matter of discovering that first, figuring out who you are as an individual. I actually had a conversation with another queen recently, and she said, you know, she was talking to a spirituality coach, and they said, oh, you know, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm this coach, I'm this, I'm a CFO, I'm this, I'm that. And the lady was like, okay, that's great, but I still haven't heard who you are.
Right.
And she sat there like, what do you mean? You know, so that level of self discovery is so
Hmm.
important, you know, when it comes to that. And I know just with you, you've had to have done it because hence the rebrand. And I also want to
Hmm.
talk a little bit about the rebrand because I feel like you're kind of going through like an evolution, so to speak.
Yes. Funny you should mention that specific word. So,
Yes.
and so yes, to put it mildly, I guess I have gone through an evolution, and
Mm,
it started, like you said, personally. It started with me getting that clarity about who I am
yeah.
and what it is that I'm called to do. And from that clarity, there was an activation that took place in
Love
my
it.
life. And so now I'm moving with so much more intention and so much more strategically, even as a brand strategist, right?
Come on.
Because I had to evolve into this person.
I
And
love
I
it.
think my biggest revelation throughout this entire process has been that evolution is not about becoming more. It's about accepting who you were always meant to be.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
the moment I accepted who I was meant to be and got into alignment, now it's like abundance and achievement is just following me everywhere because of that alignment.
I
And
love it.
so, because of that, and because of the strategies that I even learned during this evolution, like that
Mhm.
has definitely reshaped the way that I approach business. And it gives me a more holistic approach to
Yeah.
branding and to building a brand and what that actually means.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, and I just wanna say congratulations on that
Thank
because
you.
that's something I love to hear when we are stepping into who we are really truly destined to be. I think
Hmm.
it's amazing, and it shows, you know, just you speaking, it just shows all in your face. Girl, you're glowing a little bit with that evolution. I love it. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I want to talk to you a little bit more about like authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, like we said, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, as far as people wanting to copycat and wanting to replicate things. And I think sometimes people feel like when it comes to like trends, that's
Mm-hmm.
replicating is that. And I want to kind of, if you don't mind, like kind of diving into the difference between authenticity versus trends and like what you feel
Mm-hmm.
the difference is between the two.
Okay. So the thing about trends, right, is that they come and they go. There's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a new trend, something else to follow or chase after, right? So if you're constantly in chasing mode, you're not really attracting.
Ooh.
And that's what I like to empower my clients to do. We don't chase, we attract, right? And
Yeah.
so that goes back to that alignment I was talking about. So when it comes to trends, yes, take that information, you can utilize that in your strategy, for that time, but your strategy shouldn't just be rooted in trends. It should be rooted in principles and strategies that are timeless, right? The things that are going to work. Right, those
That part.
fundamental pillars that your brand needs to remain relevant
Yeah.
over time. And to
Yeah.
me, that's what makes a brand really powerful, is the fact that it remains relevant over time.
Yeah.
you know
I agree. I agree.
so
I think trends for me are more just something fun to do within your business,
mhm,
but it shouldn't be defining moments of your business. And I think
exactly.
sometimes we will try to, in the next thing you know, you see people doing every single trend that's out there, and it's like that's not even you. You look so awkward doing that, right? And
Yeah.
again, kudos to people for stepping out of comfort zones, right? But
Hmm.
if it's a struggle for you to do that, maybe that might not be the trend that you want to do within your business, or whatever, however you're showing up on social media, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Are you just trying to go viral, or are you really trying to pivot a business? And I think we have
Exactly.
to look at the difference. We've got TikTok that people can go viral so easily, but are you forgetting about your business?
Mhm.
Hey, are you wanting to be a content creator or a business owner? Because they are completely different people.
Yeah.
Like the titles are
Completely.
Yes, yes. What common mistakes do you feel like people make, entrepreneurs make, when they're trying to establish themselves, as like an industry leader? Me
Hmm.
as a coach, I'm very authentic. I am very confident in saying that I'm very authentic. I love to be raw and uncut, but I love to be me. My personality comes across, and I know I hear that a lot.
Right.
Um, I struggled, a couple years ago, like, oh, well, maybe I should tone it down a little bit. No, just being that unapologetic person,
Yes.
I can't do it, but it has allowed me to continue to elevate in my purpose. I love that you talked about purpose, because that's like
Hmm.
one of the pillars within my organization. We've got to discover what that purpose is. So, like, what do you
Yes.
think some of the common mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they're trying to position themselves as like maybe a
Mm.
startup or rebranding or something like that?
There's quite a few, so let me pick a few of them.
It
So
definitely is.
first and first and foremost, I guess I'll touch on, because this is rooted in the misconception as well. The misconception that branding is just about having a logo and a color palette and some fonts.
Yeah.
And so what people will do is, they'll start off with launching some flyers and, like get that momentum going. But because there's no strategy in place and, they don't really have a plan, you lose that momentum because now you're playing catch up for the rest of your business.
Come
So
on.
you're constantly trying to catch up and figure out how to fix all these holes in your foundation that you didn't finish building. And so I think the first mistake is to make sure that you're actually building a foundation for your brand. And then from that foundation, then you begin to build and to do more. But you have to get that foundation right first. And for me, the foundation of a brand is, like you said, authenticity, impact, profitability, and sustainability. Those are like those four fundamentals that you have to have in your business, right? And then from there, we build the pillars. So that's when you start getting into communicating your credibility, like learning how to show up as that authority and how to learn the communication skills necessary to showcase your competence and build that credibility with other people. And then we have the second pillar, which is magnetizing your message. A lot of people don't realize, on to the next mistake, a lot of people don't realize when it comes to your brand that playing it safe doesn't work.
Woo! Say it
Okay.
again.
It does not work. Like, the only way for your messaging to really stand out and to attract the right people, you have to be willing to take a stance.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people, like, the only way to stand out is to have a standard, right? Let people know what it is that you stand for and what position you're taking in your industry, and be willing to challenge what is conventional and to challenge the consistent narrative in that industry, because that's what's going to make you stand out. That's what makes you memorable. But if you're playing it safe, you're trying to appeal to everybody and therefore
That
attracting
right there.
nobody, right? Because when you try to talk to everybody, you end up attracting nobody. You have to be able to
Nobody.
find your people.
Yep.
And the only way to do that is to have that standard, so you can actually attract what is for you and repel what isn't. And a lot of times we're afraid of that repelling part, right? We don't want to feel like we're missing out. But you're not missing out, because it wasn't aligned. It wasn't for you.
Yep. Yeah.
So like you said, be true to yourself. Then we have the third pillar, which is actually having a strategy for your profits. Like, think about your client journey, right? Think about the journey, because it's an experience. Branding is an experience that you're giving people. So think about the experience that you're giving your ideal client from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And how is that reflected in your sales, your marketing, and your client onboarding and processes? Like, literally think about it from beginning to end, and make sure there is a clear strategy. Make sure you are maximizing your revenue streams. Make sure that you actually have an actionable plan that you can implement to consistently make profits, right? Are you measuring your KPIs? You know how much traffic you need to have to your website to get X amount of leads? Like, these are the things you have to think about. Like, there's math behind it. There's a science to this, right? And so that's what it takes to run a business. And then the fourth pillar, my favorite, positioning yourself with authority, right? Making sure that you really understand who you are as an industry leader. Yes. Okay, because I work with thought leaders and industry leaders. Understanding who you are as an industry leader, so that way you can present yourself in the best light and literally attract the people that you're meant to serve. And so all of these different things you have to think about, right? The way that you show up, the way that you speak and your messaging, the way that you communicate your credibility, all of these things. And of course, your profit strategy. So yeah, I would say that's definitely the top mistakes I could think of.
Hey. If y'all wasn't taking notes right there, I don't know what you doing. Let me tell y'all something. That was such an empowering, like, summary of what it takes. And this is just to begin your process, right? It's just to start off. Like, these things shift as you build and as you grow. And with that being said, I'd like to kind of touch on with you a little bit, like, what was the sign? And I know you said, it was kind of like being out of alignment, but like, what are the biggest signs that one can look at when it's time to, like, maybe pivot, rebrand, or evolve?
I would say, like, when you get to that point where you're just frustrated. there's a and people don't like the word frustrated sometimes, because we don't like feeling frustrated, but it's a necessary feeling, because it lets you know something is not working, something is not fitting. There's something that you need to either learn more about or reevaluate, right? And so frustration is an indicator. It indicates to you that there's something that needs to change. So don't run from the frustration, lean into it and figure it out. So when you feel frustrated, pay attention to that feeling and ask yourself, why is this not working? Why am I not seeing the results that I want to see? Is it because I'm not doing something in this area? Is it because I need some extra help? Maybe I need to finally invest in myself and get a coach or a consultant.
Come on.
Yeah. At some point, you're going to have to invest in yourself.
Please tell them again, because I feel like, and especially as ladies, right? Let's give us some accountability, ladies. Like, we think we can do everything and we think we can handle everything. And I love that we have that resilience mindset in a sense. But sometimes that level of outdated thinking is actually holding you back from pivoting.
Exactly.
Personally, professionally, she said it. You are going to have to evaluate and see where you need to invest, see where you maybe need to outsource, because eventually you are going to have to do it. If you're not able to generate any forms of income to help you, or any forms of funding to help you pivot and outsource and hire a coach, consultant, then that's another reason that you may need to evaluate and see where you may need to rebrand or evolve. Because as she said, you've got to make sure it's sustainable, profitable. These are the conversations that you need to have with yourself. And if you don't want to have them with yourself, then you need to hire somebody that's going to be honest with you and tell you, listen, this may not be sustainable as you once thought it was. It's time to have that uncomfortable conversation and see what we can do to move forward from that. I love that you touched on that.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
100% agree. So yeah, you had to invest in yourself. There's no way around it. Every successful person that you look up to has invested in themselves in some capacity.
In some capacity. And I think that we just have to really understand that. Like nobody's saying that and hey, if you got to invest $1 million, then that's what you got to do. But as she said, no successful person has not invested. And you're going to burn yourself out by not doing that. Hey,
Right.
have the evaluation. It could be something as simple as outsourcing your graphic designer. You know what I'm saying? It
Mm-hmm.
could be something simple. Nobody's saying out of the gate you need to invest $50,000 if you don't have that to invest. But you got to have that honest conversation with yourself. And
Right.
some of us are scared to do that because we're scared that we're going to be seen as failures.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be successful. But what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get accountable and you're going to say, you know what, I really want this, but I know that I need to make some restructure within. So I'm going to get me some help to make it happen.
Right.
That's more powerful to me than anything else.
Exactly. And you
Being
said
open
something
minded.
interesting
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
failure. I feel like the only way to be successful is to master failure.
It has to happen. Like it gotta happen, sis. Like it's a failure that you turn into an opportunity because it's also a mindset
Right.
thing. Everybody knows I talk mindset all day, every day. So I understand that a failure is an opportunity for me to learn, grow, and grow. Right? It's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity though. I'm looking at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to say, hey, I ain't finna mess with this no more. I'm done with this aspect and I'm gonna go ahead and pivot on to the next, or let me just have another strategy put in place so I can decide if this is really what's aligned with me, within my purpose, within my passion, and within my business.
Right.
Failure has to happen. It just got to happen.
It's all about your relationship with it, right?
Really
Because
is.
to me, like, I don't look at failure as a bad thing.
I don't
I
either.
don't. I
Nope.
look at failure as something like, because my thing is this, right? The first time you start something, it's not going to look great, right? It's not going to be perfect.
Hey,
There's going to
that
be some
part.
things that you have to work through because the only way to really learn is to walk through it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes, wisdom, principles, those things,
Yeah.
you can apply them. But to a certain extent, you're going to have a learning curve.
Yeah.
And so when you start walking in what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to be learning along the way. And so I don't look at it as failure, I look at it as a lesson. And
Yeah.
so in my mind, if I know I have to get the not so great parts out the way, I want to fail as fast as I can so I can fly. Like that's just how I look at it.
I
So
do.
it's all about your mindset and your relationship with
Ooh,
failure.
straight like that. Mindset is everything. And
Yeah.
also understanding that everybody's not going to understand the process that you're going
Whew.
through.
Listen, I felt that.
It's so true. Like we want, everybody to understand. We'll spend so much time trying to explain to people. And at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, they don't know, nor probably they don't care. So
Right.
stop trying to spend your time trying to explain how things look to them. Because, like you said, I think we sometimes fall short to perfectionism as well. We will
Yes.
start on something, and you with your evolution, with the rebranding and everything, But I think that you've taken some of your lessons and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is not going to be a perfect journey, but it's going to be a pivotal journey.
Right. And
Yeah.
those imperfections, that's what makes you relatable. That's what
Yes.
literally makes it your own experience? So let people see those parts of your journey that are
Yeah.
not 100% perfect because
I
that's how you
love
really
that.
find your tribe?
It's true. It's true. I think we're in the age now where people want to see authenticity.
Yes.
They want to see the genuine ups and downs, which is why the Thrill Women's Hustle even came about. Because I was having those conversations, how people were like, "Oh, I'm tired of seeing people talking about all they do is make 6 figures a month, and all I see is this." And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm tired of seeing it too. So
Yeah,
let me create a platform that people talk about the ups and the downs, because I
exactly.
know in your journey right now, there's levels of uncertainty, I'm sure, like
Mhm.
questioning, like, do I need to get this uncomfortable with the evolution? Because we're going to call it evolution because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Do I need to get this uncomfortable? You know what I'm saying? I know there were
Mhm.
so many things. Like, what's your thoughts on that right now?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I'm so big on authenticity
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we don't need any more copies. We don't need any more copy and paste, rinse and repeats. Like
Come
what we
on.
really need are trailblazers right now. We need people that are
Yes.
willing to
Yes.
step into their industry, dominate and say, hey, this is who I am. This is the stand that I'm taking. and I'm willing to challenge and shift and define perspectives in my industry.
I love
So
it.
yeah, that's what we need right now. That's what people are craving right now, is that human touch, especially now that, AI and all this, artificial stuff is
Girl,
out there. Like,
yes.
people want something more real. And so I think this is an amazing time for the entrepreneurs that really want to get serious about their business and want to just show up and be real and find a way to make what they do their own,
Yeah.
So I love it. I'm here for it.
I absolutely am too. I love it. And just kind of touching on that as we get ready to wrap up, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur that's struggling with maybe the fear of letting like old things go? Fear of, branching out into something new and like letting go of the original vision.
Mm. I think number one, be willing to give your brand and yourself room to evolve. So the vision you had when you started, it's going to evolve, it's going to
Yeah.
change, it's going to adapt, right? You're going to go through those shifts. So be willing and open minded enough to say, you know what, this was the foundation, but now I can expand on it, I can build on it, right? So be willing to let go of what is no longer serving you so that you can embrace what actually is meant for you. Right. And I think, like you said, we're so afraid to just let go of things sometimes. And it's like, what are you really holding on to? Like,
Yeah.
are you more afraid of seeing what's on the other side, or of remaining stagnant?
Yep.
Because that's
Yep.
what it is. It's stagnation, right? Disguised as
Definitely
security.
that.
And
Definitely that.
so it's like, okay, so what are we going to do? Are we going to move forward? Because I guarantee you, everything that you want and that you're envisioning is on the other side of what you're most afraid of. So you got to face it. That's the
It's
only way
fact.
through.
It's the only way. Listen, the emotions that we experience we're supposed to experience those. That was one of the biggest realities for me, as someone who
Mm-hmm.
suppress emotion all the time. Like, I embrace every single emotion. I will cry at the drop of a
Yes.
dime. Listen, I will do any of that at this point in my life. But that's what peace is all about for me. That's what my authenticity is all about, and being transparent and being vulnerable, because that's where I am now. I didn't used to be that person before 2020. So I love
Mm.
the evolution that I have gone on and that I continue to go on, personally, but also professionally within the business. So I love how you touched on that, because it's super important that you have to go ahead and jump on that other side. Fear is false evidence appearing real, y'all.
Yep. Facts.
85% of the things you think gonna happen won't. Okay. All
At
right.
all. At all.
So we know that you are in the process of evolution right now. Tell us what else you've got going on besides that.
Right now, that is the main focus. I'm not going to lie. Like, most of my attention has been on the rebrand and my launch party, because I'm doing a launch party to celebrate.
Woo!
So I wanted it to be not just like your typical event, right? I didn't
Yeah,
want it to just be like, oh, hey guys, a new brand. I really
right.
wanted this to be, I don't want to say an activation ceremony, but yeah, maybe it is. I wanted this to kind
Right.
of be,
I
like
like
a place,
that. I like that. I like that.
a place where you can come and not just see my journey, but learn from my journey. And
Mhm.
I can share with you the principles and the wisdom that I extracted from that journey, so that it can help you with your own evolution.
I
And so
love
that's what
that.
I really want this to be. It's about giving back, it's about pouring, it's about providing value and giving people an opportunity to take their brand to the next level based off of what I've learned. As I'm evolving, I want the people around me to evolve too. Like, let's
Yes.
go together,
I love it. I
So
love
that's what it's
it.
about. So I'm excited about it.
And I always have to tell those that are on those elevating journeys, I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
Congratulations for just leaping, pivoting, evolving. I think it's amazing, sis. You are wearing it so well, and continued blessings to you in that journey. Listen, y'all, all of her information will be in the podcast description notes, so where you will be able to find all of her evolving information. Because like I said, she is under rebrand right now as we record. So by the time you guys see this, hopefully we will have details on launch and everything, but you guys will have access to be able to get with her, learn more about what she provides, what she offers. And hey, if you are looking for someone to help you with your brand, strategize and evolve, then hey, definitely make sure you reach out to her. Okay. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing your insight, your strategics, but also your vulnerability, and best of luck with everything moving forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, you know what to do. If you have not by now, this episode should definitely be your motivation to subscribe to the channel. All right. Make sure you are favoriting the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on. If you have questions, we definitely definitely want to know. Let us know. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. If you're interested in being a guest, hey, do the same thing. Reach out. Let me know. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Thanks for catching the Woman's Hustle. Till next time, baby.